In this tutorial, I've decided to do a HestiaCP tutorial. So I will put all the videos in one playlist like this. So if you come here to my channel under playlists, you'll see that I do have other playlists. You can see I have a virtual main tutorial playlist here. I also have a cyber panel tutorial playlist. And the next one that you're going to have is HestiaCP. So if you want to use HestiaCP, I will put all the videos in one playlist. So HestiaCP is a control panel that is based off of Vesta. So if you know about Vesta, you know it is a reliable control panel, but it has become dormant. So if you want something that is actively developed, then you can try HestiaCP, which I recommend because it is reliable. And these are the operating systems that it supports. So it supports Debian and Ubuntu, VPSs that I recommend that you can use, and I will put the link in the description, or you can just go ahead and use Vultr or Contabo. So Contabo is a German VPS provider. Currently, they provide the cheapest VPSs, and if you want to try them, you can do so as well. I'll put the link in the description. For DNS, I'm going to use Cloudflare. So I will not use HestiaCP for DNS, but I will use Cloudflare. However, I will install everything I need to install in HestiaCP, but I will be using Cloudflare for all my DNS settings, and you'll see how to do that when we get to that point. By the end of this tutorial, you're going to see how you can run multiple websites on HestiaCP, and I will be using WordPress as an example. So if you want to run multiple WordPress websites on your VPS, then you'll see how you can do that using HestiaCP. And it's important to note that I'm not a huge fan of Apache, so I will not be installing Apache, but I will install Nginx and PHP FPM for my server. So that's the important part that I wanted to cover before I end this video. So I'll see you in the next one. Hi there, and welcome to this HestiaCP Control Panel tutorial. And in this HestiaCP Control Panel tutorial, we're going to install HestiaCP on Ubuntu 24 LTS, which is the latest Ubuntu LTS version, which will be supported by Ubuntu up to the year 2025 and will receive further maintenance updates up to the year 2030. So that's why you should always use an LTS, long-term supported Ubuntu versions for your server. We're going to install HestiaCP as Nginx and PHP FPM. That's the setup you're going to use. We're not going to install Apache, so just know that in advance. And then you're going to see how you can add multiple websites on that HestiaCP server. So the tools that we're going to need for this tutorial: number one, we're going to use Contabo as our VPS of choice. So to get to Contabo, you can just use my link, and you can use Bizanosa, bizanosa.com/Contabo. And this is going to take you to Contabo VPS, where you can look at the different offers that are available. We're going to need to set up our server, and as I said, we're going to use Ubuntu 24, so we're going to need to set it up. And the post that we're going to use to set it up, you can find that on my website, and the link will be in the description. But if it is not there, you can just search for it on Google or Bing. Just search for Bizanosa Ubuntu server setup. So Bizanosa is my website name, and this is the one, Ubuntu 20 initial server setup on a VPS. And this is a post that I'm going to use to set up my server. So as I said, we're going to use Ubuntu 20.04. So we're going to use this to set up Ubuntu 20.04. And the things we're going to do are here. Everything we're going to do is listed here. So just follow along with me, and everything is going to be clear for you. But just note that I'm not going to use Party. So that's the next tool. The next tool we're going to use, we're not going to use Party. We're going to use Git Bash, and you can get Git Bash for free on Google. So just search for Git, download Git, and you download it from this website, Git SCM. We're going to use Git Bash. So I'm on Windows, that's why I have to install Git Bash. If you're following along on Mac or on Ubuntu, then you can just use the terminal. Instead of having to install Git, you can use terminal. But if you want to follow along, you can still install it. You can see you can install Git for Linux and even Mac. Now, if you don't have it and you are on Windows, just click there and download it, install it, and it's going to come with everything you need. It's going to come with Git Bash, Git GUI, and Git CMD, but we only need Git Bash. So once it's downloaded, make sure you install it, and we will start in the next video, and we're going to start by setting up our server on Contabo. I will see you in that next video when we set up our Contabo server. In this video, we're going to set up our Contabo server. We're going to create the account. If you want to get to this page on Contabo, just go to bizanosa.com/Contabo, and the link is in the description. I will choose this option. You can choose any option that you want. You can even choose any of these other servers. You can use any of this dedicated server or virtual dedicated server, whichever one you want to use. Go ahead and try it. Now for me, I want to try it with this, and this is the one that I'm going to use. I will just click there on select. These are the settings you're going to get. Now, initial contract period, there you can choose whichever you want. The region, just note that with the region, the monthly price is going to vary. So the monthly charge for your server is going to vary based on the location of the server. If I choose a data center in the United States, you can see the price, the monthly price is going to increase by that. If I choose one in Asia, the price is going to increase by $3. So just choose one that is most appropriate for you and your visitors. We have chosen this region of Germany. The next option is we need to choose an operating system. Okay, look at all the operating systems that are available here, and you can choose whichever one you want to use. For me, I want to use Ubuntu, but the best option for Ubuntu, if you don't want to use Ubuntu, you can always use Debian. If this was my server, I would definitely be using Debian, but I'm just using Ubuntu because I know most people prefer to use it, and that's why I want to use it here. You can see the Linux server operating systems that I recommend. The link will be in the description. Now, I will start with Ubuntu 20.04 and always use an LTS version. If your VPS doesn't have 20.04, then just use the latest, the previous one, which is 18.04. But of course, you should probably use the latest LTS version of Ubuntu. And so we're going to use 20.04, which is the latest LTS version. And then this, we're going to leave that as it is. IP, you can add another IP. If you want to add an additional IP, it will be $4 a month. So your monthly charges will also increase by that based on the IP addresses that you add. So we're going to choose only one IP address. And then backup space, if you want to add backup, you can do that, and the prices are there. If you want your server to be managed by Contabo, you can see that's the monthly price. You can monitor your server and see how it's performing. If anything is happening that you don't want, any resources are being overused, you will get alerts for that. And you can use SSL if you want to add SSL, but please don't bother with this because you're going to install a control panel, and with most control panel nowadays you'll get Let's Encrypt, which is already set up in most control panels. So don't worry about SSL. You can set that up using the free control panel that you're going to install. And then setup, if you want to fast track the setup, you can choose this. This is going to make sure that your account is set up faster, but who cares, right? We are patient, we'll wait. And then how many servers do you want to set up? If you want multiple servers, you can choose the number of servers that you want to set up. Maybe you want to set up multiple, you can do that there. So that's pretty much it. Let me just confirm that everything is as I chose it. So Ubuntu there, I'll just go next. So you can see I will need to log in. So I already have an account with Contabo. If you don't have an account, just go ahead and create yours. And if they ask you for any details to verify your identity, just send them something. You can send them anything that has your actual physical address on it, like a billing, any form of billing that you have, water bill or an electric bill. You can send that. You can just scan it and send it, and it will be used to verify your identity. Private, individual, let's forget about that. I want to log in. I'm already a customer. So if you want to log in, in future, if you want to log into Contabo, you can just go to my.contabo.com. So let's come in here and do my.contabo.com. Enter. And that's going to redirect you to the login page for Contabo. So when you're here, you can just click here, log in here if you're already a customer. I don't remember my password. I'm going to reset mine here. So just log in and we'll meet in the next screen. Log in here. Let's see. So once I reset my password, let me come back and log in here. Okay, so I'm logged in. If you have a coupon code, just click there and add one. That's it. You'll see the amount you should pay, and I will just order and pay. I will just wait for them to finish provisioning the server, and as soon as it's provisioned, what's going to happen is you're going to get all the details that you need to log into your server. You're going to receive them in your email. Everything that you need will be sent to your email. And before this happens, let's say your account is new, what they will need, or what they may need, is some kind of document just to prove yourself. Okay, so as I said, if they ask you for anything to prove your physical address, just send any kind of billing. You can send an electric bill, water bill, any kind of bill that has your physical address on it, and they will use that to verify you. And as soon as you're verified, they will create your account and they will create your server, and all the details will be sent to you. If you don't want to deal with all this verification stuff, just choose a VPS in America. You can choose something like Valtra. That's one that I use a lot, and I can definitely recommend them. They have very fast servers, even though their offers are not as good as Contabo. So let's just wait and see if it's going to get provisioned for me as soon as possible. As soon as you log into your Contabo account, once they have sent you all the details, you'll see your servers here. Any VPSs that you have, any services that you have with Contabo, you can just click there and you'll see the details for all the servers listed. And you can also look at the VPSs that you have right there. They will be listed here. If you did choose VDS, then you can look at that as well. Right now, there isn't much I can do. Therefore, I'm just going to wait for an email from Contabo, and once it comes, we can begin setting up the server in the next video. So what I'm waiting for is an IP address, a root user, and a password. So once all that is set up for me, I can start setting up my server. And as I said, we're going to use this post to set up our server. Okay, so the link for this will be in the description. If it's not there, just remind me and I will add it, or you can just go to Google or Bing and search for Bizanosa Ubuntu server setup, and you're going to find this post. Okay, so for me, I'm going to use git bash to set up my server instead of using party. Okay, you can see this is party. I'm not going to use party. I'm going to use git bash. So you can just use terminal if you're on Mac, and you can use terminal as well if you are on Linux. So I will see you in the next video when we start setting up the server. I'm just waiting for the details from Contabo. All the details I need will be sent to my email as soon as the server is set up for me. So if you don't want to deal with all this waiting process from Contabo, you can use a different VPS, and American VPSs usually don't have this wait period. An example is DigitalOcean, Valtra. I've used both, and you can use them if you want to. If you want to set up a server just to try something, go ahead and use Valtra or DigitalOcean, but I do recommend Valtra because I used them for over 4 years and I still use them to this day. So I can definitely vouch for Valtra. Very reliable, very fast servers as well. It's entirely up to you to use whichever you want, but you can also see the VPSs that I recommend. I will leave the link in the description. Let's continue in the next video. So I've just received all the login data for my Contabo server. So what I got are the IP address, server type, the VNC, IP, and port. So VNC can be used to access your server remotely, and then the VNC password as well. And then you're going to get the username, and the username by default is root. And you're going to get a password for the root user and the type of operating system that you set up. You're going to get all of this in your Contabo first email. So if your account is new, you're also going to get your Contabo login details, and you can use that to log into your Contabo dashboard. We want to log into our server, and now that we have all the details, we can do that. We are interested in VPS control because we did set up a VPS. If you don't know which IP address you're working with or which is which, just go to your email address and look at the IP address that has been sent there. So you'll see the operating system, and if you're not sure, you can also come here under services. All right, so if you want to log into your server, the first thing you want to do is make sure that you restart your server. So the server will be restarted, and as soon as you do that, give it some time and just copy this, our IP address. We have the IP address, we have the user, our user is root, and we have the password that was sent for root, and you can find that in your Contabo email. To log in, so on Windows, I'm going to use git bash. You can download git bash for free and install it. If you are on a Mac or Linux, you can use terminal to follow along. So just search for git. If you're on Windows, that is, search for git download, and then click on that. You want to download it for Windows. Since you're on Windows, you're probably following along on Windows. Choose Windows and install it. And once you install it, it's going to come with everything we need. And we're going to use git bash for this tutorial. Once you install it, just come back to Windows and then search for git. We want to work with git bash. You can see there's git GUI and there's git cmd, but I only want to use git bash. To log in, type SSH and the user is root at the IP address. So with this, I think you can paste. Let's see how you can paste. That is at root at, and then you can paste, and you can do shift insert to paste. And as soon as I do that, it's going to ask me for the password, and you can see it's asking me to authorize this into my hosts file. I'm going to type yes to affirm that, and it will be added to my hosts file. So it will be a known host on my computer, and I can access it without any problems. We need to add the password, so you can paste it in here by doing shift insert. If you just do that, you can paste using shift insert, yes, and you won't see the password as you type it in or as you paste it in. So just press enter, and if it is correct, you should be logged into your server. There we go. That's how to log into your Contabo server. Of course, the first thing you want to do is you want to update your server. So since we are still using root, I can just do apt update, enter. Let's see if there are any updates. All right, so you can see 4 packages can be upgraded. So let's do apt upgrade to upgrade, enter. Then y, enter. So just let it update, and that will be pretty much it. So you've seen how you can set up your Ubuntu server on Contabo and then log into your Ubuntu server VPS if you want to start setting it up. So just remember that we are going to start using this post to set up our server. So there we go. Our updates are done. If you want to log out of your server, you can just do exit, and that's going to log you out of your server. Okay, so let's continue in the next video. And in the next video, what I want us to do is I want us to come in here, and we are going to create a new sudo user. The link to this post is in the description. There we go. We're going to do this in the next video. Let's continue doing an Ubuntu initial server setup. And in this video, we're going to create a new sudo user so that we don't have to use the root user in upcoming videos. In upcoming setup, we will not have to use the root user. To create a new user, you will just use that command. You can find the link to this post in the description. Add user, and then that's the name of the user. You can call it whatever you want to call it. Let me just copy this because I really don't want to type. I will come back to git bash. I will call my user new user 21, enter. And then you need to add a password for your new Ubuntu user. We're going to give them a strong password. Retype the password. Okay, so the password has been updated successfully. So I'm just going to press enter until I'm done with all of this. Y, and then enter. Okay, so is the information correct? Yes. So let me just clear the screen once again. So once we've created the new user, the next step is for us to make that user into a sudo user. So we can give them sudo privileges, and to do that, we are just going to copy this. This is going to give them sudo privileges so that they can run the sudo command. If they need to do anything that the root user normally does, they'll just add sudo to it, and they will be able to do whatever command that is. I'm going to paste in that. The user that we created was new user 21. I'll press enter, and that's going to give them the sudo privileges. Let me open up a new Git bash window, and we're going to try and log in with our new user. I will open a new window of Git bash. We can just do SSH that. And now instead of logging in as root, let's log in as the new user. New user 21. So what you want to do is you want to test if this user actually has the sudo privileges. Enter the password that you set up for your user. There we go. We're logged in as the new user that we've set up, and that is evident there. You can see we're logged in as that user. Now the next thing is let's try and see if we can use sudo. Now that we've given this user the sudo privileges, let's test if we can use sudo. So I'm just going to do sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade -y. So this is just to try and update the server, and if they can do this, then they can use sudo privileges in all the upcoming commands that we're going to do. So enter. The first time that you use the sudo command, you need to add a password for the user. So the password that you created for this user, add that. And there we go. Since I can see that this command is running without any problems, it means that we can use sudo to do everything that we need to do, and we no longer need the root user. From now on, everything that you do, use this user that you created. For me, this is a user. For you, it will definitely be different. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this video. In the next video, let's see what you need to do. Now the next step is for us to set up SSH. So I'm going to set up SSH authentication using Git bash, and I'm going to use this part to do that. So I will see you in the next video when we get here. Hi and welcome back to another video. And in this video, what I want us to do is I want us to set up SSH authentication for our Ubuntu server. So if you want to log in using SSH keys, then this video is for you. The post that I will use for this is this, and you'll find the link in the description. And even if you don't, just go to my website and you can search for this title. Okay. If you're on Windows, follow with this post. If you're using a Mac or you're using Linux, then come to this other post, generate SSH keys and use them to log into your CentOS RHEL Debian server. This is for Mac and Linux users. Okay. It's a very long post, but it has everything that you'll need. Everything that you'll need to set up your server, to set up SSH authentication on your server. And as well, you can come to bizanosa.com and search for the post here, or you'll find the link in the description below. I'm going to use this since I'm on Windows, and I'm just going to scroll down up to the part where I have this thing for SSH authentication. And you can even follow along with the video. If you just click there, it's going to take you to this timestamp on YouTube where you can watch how I did it on a Debian server. Debian and Ubuntu, almost the same thing, so it doesn't really matter. It's still going to work on your Ubuntu server. Let's start. And since I'm on Windows, the first thing I want to do is I want to create a folder, and that folder is where I'm going to store my keys. If you have Git bash installed on your Windows, you're going to have this folder. If you can't see it, just enable hidden folders on your Windows and you're going to see it. I'm going to create a folder and I'm going to call it Ubuntu server so that we can just differentiate them. So all our SSH keys will be stored inside here in our root directory, and this is just the root directory. Okay, the root directory is your username. On your Windows, your username, you can get to your root directory. If you go to your C drive, if you go to your local disk drive, and then you go to users, now your username, that will be your root directory, and instead of using this link, the tilde, this just replaces that with your root directory. Okay, so that's for Git bash, and even on Linux it's like that. So if you come here under SSH, you're going to see that I do have these different folders. These are some tutorials I've done in the past. That's why they're here. We're going to create a new one for our Ubuntu, and this is where we're going to store the keys the private and the public key for our Ubuntu server. So I'm going to call it Ubuntu server. Let me just remove the space. Okay, so once we create the folder, so we've created the folder, we're going to generate our keys, and we're going to generate it inside of the folder we've created. Okay, so to generate your keys, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to use that, and this is just the command that tells the system to generate a new key, and we're going to generate a key with this type, and the type for our key is going to be an RSA key, and the bytes for our key is going to be 4096. You can create 2048 if you want to, but we're going to do 4096, and this is just a comment. You can even leave that out if you don't want to. Okay, and then this is where we want to store our key. So we're going to store our key there. This is going to be the name of our key. Okay, two keys are going to get generated. We're going to generate a public key, and we're going to generate a private key. A public key is going to have this name plus.pub, and you're going to see it once we've generated it. So let me just copy this, and I'm going to copy that and put it, and I'm going to put it inside of this txt file so that I can just paste in things without having to type them. So SSH Key gen, this, we don't need to change anything there. I'll just leave that as it is. That's just a comment. You can change. This is going to be treated as a comment. You can just add it. It can even be something that reminds you of this key. So SSH and the folder, what was the name of that folder? The name of the folder for our key was Ubuntu server. I'm going to copy that. And that's going to be the folder inside of .ssh, paste, and then we can just call it that. Okay, it doesn't really matter, right? Or we can just call it Ubuntu or whatever. This is going to be the name of our key. You can call it whatever you want. You can even remove that bit. You can call it anything that you want. You get the point. So I'm going to copy this. This is going to generate our key, and it's going to generate both keys. So let's come back into Git Bash where we already logged in. Please note that you need to do this on your local computer. You're supposed to generate your key on your local computer. The folder where you're storing your keys will be on your local computer. So generate this on your local computer. Even if you're on Linux, make sure you remember that on the other end if you're following the other post. And I can log out, or I can just open a new instance of Git Bash, and then I'm going to paste that. Remember, we're doing this on our local computer. So the name of our key, the key will be stored inside of that folder, and we're generating a 4096-bit key because Ubuntu 2004 supports that. All right, so the key is being generated, but you're being asked for a passphrase. So make sure you enter a passphrase, which is going to be a password for your key. So every time you need to log in with your key, it won't be automatic. You'll first of all get asked to add your passphrase. So you can add that, but since I'm just doing a demo, I'm not going to add it. I'm just going to skip. But make sure you add one, and make sure it's one that you can remember, because if you forget it, you will not be able to log in, and you may have to do a few resets on your server just to make sure that you can access it once again. So I'm going to press enter, and I'm going to enter again. So once I press enter, the key will be generated, and you can see that we've generated two keys. Okay, if you read that, you'll see that we have two keys now. We have the private and the public key. The .pub key, this is a public key, and the other one is a private key. So I can just copy this and put them together with this. Once we generate the key, we need to add them to our server. We have generated our two keys. The next step, let's add our keys onto the server. So add the public SSH key to your Linux server. So by the way, you can use this for any server that you're using, whether you're using CentOS, you're using Red Hat, or even the new ones, Alma Linux, Rocky Linux, Debian. You can follow with this post, and it's going to work for any of those Linux servers. So let's add the private key. Let's add the public key to our server. Let me just copy this, and then we're going to replace things as we need to. Copy it here, and then I'm going to explain it. So this is going to add our public key to the server. So SSH copy ID is going to add our key to the server, and this is just telling us the identity of the key that we want to use. So the path to the public key, and then for the user that we want to add it for. So here you're going to add your IP address plus the user that you created, not for the root. Add this for the user that you created, and the user that I created was new user 21, and then I will add my IP address later. So SSH copy ID, the path to the key. Now I will copy this because I know that my key is inside here. Both my keys, if I go into that folder, Ubuntu server, you can see we have our public key and the private key. This is the one that we need to add into our server, and we're going to add it. Since this is the name of our key, I will copy and I will replace that with this, because this is a path to our key. And then just remember that with .pub is a public key, without .pub is a private key. So let me add .pub because we need to add the public key to our server, not the private. All right, I can just copy this and add this to our server. I'm still doing this on my local computer. If you see this, this is my local computer. So I'm going to paste that. I'm going to paste. Okay, I must have copied that line. I shouldn't have. Let me come back and I will paste this. Okay, so this is going to generate this is going to add our key to our server, but first of all we need to add our IP address there. Let me go to Contabo and find my IP. After adding my IP, I will just press enter, and I'll be asked to log in as this user so that I can add my key. So just remember the password for the new user that you set up, because in a moment we'll be asked to log in. So it's adding the details that we need. Okay, so we need to add the password for that, for the user that you created, so that you can log in and add the public key. Just like that, you have now set up SSH. You've now set up SSH authentication for your Ubuntu server. You can see one key has been added, but I still need to do one thing before I try to log in. Let me come back to where I'm logged in into my server. So this now I'm doing this on my server where I'm logged in. Let me just press enter to see if I'm still logged in. Okay, yeah, I'm still logged in. We want to change the permissions for the key that we've added, because on Linux, if you don't add the correct permissions, you will not be able to log in with those keys. We need to change the permission for the SSH folder, and we need to change the permission for the SSH authorized keys. Now this is where the key has been added. That's why we are changing it to root level permission. Now this is a folder. Okay, this is a file, and we can combine two. So this is like combining two commands. So we could have easily just have pasted in that, and then once this has been done, you come in and you paste that, but you want to do this in one line. So I'm just going to copy this entire thing. I will bring it back to where I'm logged in because I need to change permissions for those two items. Press enter, and of course you need to add the sudo password, the password for this user. Since there is no error, there is no output, that means that the permissions have been changed, and you can actually look, if you can actually see the permissions for that. Okay, if you just do ls-la, you'll see the list of all the files, but I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to do that. You can just do that to see, and you'll see that the permission has been changed. Now this is very important, because if you don't do this, you'll never be able to log into your server. Okay, once you've changed the permission, this is now the next important thing. You have to change ownership for that file to the user that you created, because if you don't, that file is now owned by root, and this user needs to access that file so that they can log in. They need to access the public key that was added there. Right now it is at 600. This is a root level permission. Okay, for you to access this, you need to have sudo privileges or you need to be root. We have to change the ownership for that file into the new user that we created, because if we don't do that, we won't be able to log in. We will never ever be able to log in. So let's just come in here and paste that in there, and I need to copy the user that I created. Make sure it's the user that you created, and where there's Joe, just replace that. So this is a group of Joe. Paste the group of Joe, and then the user of Joe, you give it the user that you created, and then of course the home directory folder, you want it to be this guy. So everything inside there, you're giving permission to this guy. You're giving ownership to this fella, this new user. Okay, you're giving ownership to the group and to the user for anything inside of this, and the public key that we added is inside of this folder. So let's go back to git bash. I will paste that in there, press enter, and as soon as I do this, now I will be able to log in via SSH. Let me open up a new git bash instance. Okay, so let's try to log into our server using the SSH keys. Okay, let me come back to this place, and we're going to test our SSH authentication by trying to log in. So I'm just going to copy this, copy that. I can explain what they do. All right, so you remember initially we logged in as SSH user at IP, and that was it. Okay, and then we were asked for a password. Right now we need to add the user server IP and an identity for a key. Okay, this tells the system that you want to log in using a key with this identity. Okay, so the identity for our key, we can just copy that right here, because our key was generated as that, and I'm just going to paste that in there. Now the server IP, I will take that, copy. Let me just remove everything here, paste. So I'm going to add the IP address once I copy it from Contabo. So let me just copy all the way up to here. Copy. Now the way that I've shown you how to set up SSH is a really nice one, because you can create multiple keys for different servers. If you do it any other way, you're probably going to have problems if you try to create other SSH keys. Now let's come here where we're not logged in, and I'm going to paste this. And remember, I haven't added my IP address. As soon as I add it, I will be logged into my server, because I did not add a passphrase. If you added a passphrase while you are generating the key, you'll need to enter your passphrase. So let me just go back, because I need to enter my IP address there. Paste. So that's the private key that we want to log in with. Remember, the public key was added on the server. The private key is now the one we're using to log in. So if I press enter, I should log in automatically. And you can see for me, I was logged in automatically because I did not add a passphrase. However, if you added a passphrase, which you probably most definitely should do, then you'll need to enter the passphrase as soon as you press enter. Now let's go back, and the last thing that I want to do is I want us to disable the root user and the password authentication, and I want to do this in this video. So I'm just going to copy this. So what we're doing here is we're going to make it such that people cannot log in with the key without our key. They have to log in using a key. So if you don't have a key, you won't be able to log in, and we're also going to disable root login. So let's do that in the SSH configuration file. So if I do that, enter. Okay, now we are here on the SSH file. What I need to look for is I need to change two things here. First of all, I need to change permit root login to no, and I need to change password authentication also to no. So let me just go and search for them. So I'm using Nano. You can see we are editing using Nano. So with Nano, I can just copy this and then I can search for it. So if you want to search for anything on Nano, just press Control W, and then since I'm using git bash, I can just do shift insert to copy, to paste, I mean. And then when I press enter, it's going to look for that. And you can see permit root login has been set to yes. So we don't want root to be able to log in. So we want to set this to no. And we're going to delete yes. And then the next thing that I want us to look for is password authentication. So let me just copy password authentication from here. And we're going to search for it in the SSH config file. So once again, let's do Control W. And then I'm going to do Shift Insert to paste. Enter. And you can see password authentication has been commented out. Right there, it has been commented out. And we need to uncomment it. I'm just going to uncomment it, remove the hash sign, and that's going to uncomment it. And then we need to change the value to no. And then I will delete yes. Okay, so once I do that, I can just do Control X. Now just note that there are other things you can change in this file. If you want to be really strict, you can change lots of things in these files. Okay, so maybe you want to reduce the number of times somebody can try to log in. You can reduce that there. The maximum sessions, how many people do you want to be logged in simultaneously? You can change that there. Just make sure you don't make things too strict, because you might end up blocking yourself out. Okay, just Google stuff before you change anything. Google stuff and see the implication of the changes you're going to make. So I'm just going to do Control X to exit out of Nano, Control X, and then Y to accept the changes, and then enter to exit out completely. The next thing is I need to restart SSH, and I don't want to type this, so I'm just going to copy it from here. SSH, let me use sudo service SSH restart. I will do Shift Insert to paste, press enter, and as soon as I do this, now if somebody tries to log in, they will not be able to log in as the root user, and they will not be able to use the password. So that was the objective of this video. The objective was very clear, and it was to set up SSH authentication for our server. And the link to this post is in the description, so you don't have to worry about that. You can just come, you can even come here on my site, and you can search for this post if the link is not there, but I'll make sure I add it for you. So that's it for this video. Make sure you follow everything as I've done it, because if you don't, you may end up making various mistakes that will have serious ramifications, such as you not being able to log into your server. So make sure you follow everything step by step. Just be patient and follow along step by step. These things are very easy once you get used to doing them. Okay, so just make sure that you follow along step by step. And that's it for this video. In the next, we're going to do the final thing, and the final thing is creating a swap file in our server. And I'm just going to use this. Okay, this is for Debian, but I'm just going to use this because it's still going to work on Ubuntu. So that's the last thing that we're going to do before we install our control panel. After that, we're going to install the control panel, and we'll see how to add websites and how to run your website, work with DNS, and so on. So that's it for this video. I'll see you in another one. A swap file is a file that is used as memory when the actual physical memory runs out on your server. So if you have a low memory VPS, you definitely need to create a swap file. So on a VPS, you don't have access to your disks, and therefore a swap file is the next best thing. You can also create a swap disk, but of course we want to create a swap file since we are on a VPS. If you are using Contabo, you can see that you get 8 GB of RAM for that, and you get 16 for that. So you can choose whichever plan you want, and you see that you probably won't need the swap file, but I'm just doing this for the benefit of people who are following on a different VPS. Maybe you're using Vultr or DigitalOcean, then in that case you probably need to add a swap file so that you can have memory that will be used in case your server runs out of memory. Just as a caution to anybody following along, that this is how it should be. This image, you see this image, this is how it should be. My website was stripping out these double hyphens. Okay, these are double hyphens. if you need to follow along, you'll need to know that. So let's just copy this. I'll just copy this only, sudo swap on. So the link to this page is in the description. You don't need to type this stuff. So I will paste that in there, sudo swap on, and that's -- show. And you can see, okay, we do have a swap file already. So you can see Ubuntu on Contabo has already created a swap file for us. So this means that we do have a swap file. So we can just create another one, and I'm just creating this for the benefit of people that want to see how to create a swap file on their VPS if they don't already have one. So the first thing, this was just to see if we do have a swap file, and remember, these are 2 hyphens. Okay, step 1, we're going to create the file that will be used for swapping. Okay, so we need to create a file and allocate a size to that file. So I'll just copy these things without changing anything. I will just paste that in there, enter. Okay, now this file has been created. You can do ls-la, and you're going to see that in your root directory, there's a file called my swap file. Explaining it once again, that's the name of the file. Okay, so you can change the name to whatever. You can call it my swap file, you can call it the new swap file, you can even call it file py, whatever you want to call it. And this is going to allocate the size for the file. So this is going to allocate 2 GB to this file. If you want to allocate 1 GB, just put 1 GB. If you want to allocate 4, put 4 GB. Okay, we've created the file and allocated that. Now the next step is we need to change the permissions for the file that we've created. So I'm just going to do that. And remember that you can create it inside another folder if you want to. That's okay. Okay, if you want to put it inside of another folder, that's okay. You can see here it is in the root directory. So let us change the permissions for the file. And once we change the permissions, we need to now make it a swap file, and we also need to turn the swap on. So this is going to make it, and this is going to make the file a swap file, and this is going to turn it on, swap on. So I'm just going to do this in one line. Copy. I will paste that and then enter. And now our swap is on. Now the swap is on, yes, but if we restart the server, it's not going to recognize the swap file. So what we need to do is we need to add it inside of this file. And inside of this file, we're going to add that so that we can let the system know that that is a swap file that should be restarted with the system. So we're going to copy that. So any memory that we have, they're usually listed inside of this FS tab, and this is the one that usually tells the system when it restarts that these are the memories that we currently have. So let's just bring our cursor down, and we need to copy this. So if you change the name of the file or you change its location, make sure that is reflected in this. So for me, I'm just copying what is already here so that I don't have to type. Paste. And then I'll do Control X to exit out of Nano, and then yes, I'll enter Y because I want to accept the changes, and then I will press enter to accept the changes. Now, if I restart the system, our swap file will be there. Okay, and even if I do sudo swap on show, remember sudo swap on show has 2 hyphens. Oh, but for me, let me just do sudo free -h. This is going to show me all the memory that is available for me to use. So let's come back here. Sudo free -h. This is going to show us all the memory that is available, and you can see our memory is that, and we still have that available memory. And our swap file, if you remember, for my server, I already had 2 GB of swap file, and I also created another 2 GB of a swap file. So I have a total of 4 GB of swap memory. That's why you can see I have 4 GB of swap memory, and it is unused because it is only used when this one runs out. As soon as you run out of memory, they will use your swap file. Your applications will all be moved to your swap memory. Okay, So that's what it's all about. So in this video, you've seen how you can create a source file on Ubuntu, even though I used this guide that clearly states is for Debian. Even on CentOS, if you want to, even on Alma Linux, you can just follow this and it's going to create the source file the same way. All right, so that's it for this part. In the next video, we're going to see how to install our control panel. And then once we do that, we'll see how we can work with DNS and then add websites. And we're going to see how we can add a WordPress website. We're going to see how you can change your host name on your server, on your Ubuntu server, and you can follow the same steps for Debian if you are using Debian. But I will be doing this on Ubuntu because this server is an Ubuntu 2004 LTS. So I will see you in that next video when we change the server host name. In this video, we are going to change the server host name, and I will be using Contabo for this example. If you're also using Contabo and you come here under reverse DNS management and we're interested in this IP, you'll see that the reverse PTR record is that, and we want to change this to something else that we can use. So you should definitely use an actual domain, and the domain should be one where your panel is installed. So if you're installing a control panel like HestiaCP Cyber Panel, it should give the domain for where it is installed there. To change the hostname on Ubuntu or Debian, I have this post here. You can just follow this post, and I will leave the link in the description. For the control panel, I will install it in a subdomain, panel1.javascriptbear.com. I want to change my hostname to that. The panel will be installed in a subdomain. You can install it in a full domain if you want to, but I choose to use a subdomain. Come back here, and you can see this is currently the first part of our host name. So we want to change that. Let's first of all see our host name. To check your host name, you can just do host name, and that is our full host name, and we want to change it. So if we come here, you can change the host name. You'll need to edit it there. I want to change my host name to panel1 dot panel1.javascriptbear.com. So this is going to be my host name. So let's come back to the post, and I just need to edit this file and change it there. So if we go into this file, if we go into the hostname file, we'll see that our hostname is listed there and we can change it. If we come back to where we're logged into our server, make sure you've logged into your server. So I'm going to paste that in there. And you can see that's our host name. So the first thing I need to do is I need to remove this and replace it with this. So I'm going to copy this entire thing, and then I can just use my cursor. I'll just press delete and delete everything in there. The name of my server, I'll delete that there, and then I can paste. So if you want to paste here, and I'm using Git Bash, you can use Shift Insert to paste. If you're using Putty, you'll just right click to paste. If you're on terminal, I think it's Control Shift V. So just paste the way that your command line tool will allow you. So for me, I'll do Shift Insert. Then I will close Nano by doing Control X, and then accept the changes. Y to accept the changes, and then press Enter to exit out of Nano. So the next thing is to change this in our hosts file. So we've changed it in the host name. So the server knows the host name is that, the one we've added, but we need to reflect that in the system. So to do that, we need to change something in our hosts file. So copy, paste, enter, and you can see this is the one we need to change. Okay, and we also need to change that. Okay, so every instance of the old host name, we're going to change that with the new host name. And let's just come back and copy this, copy the new host name, and we're changing this on Ubuntu, but this is going to work for you even if you're on Debian. So let me find my cursor, and I will just move my cursor to that point, and let me delete this name. And then I will add a space there, Shift insert to paste. And then for this other one, since I'm using a subdomain, the first part of my hostname will be what is here. But if you're using a full domain, just use the full name of your domain. And then let's scroll down again for IPv6. For IPv6, let's scroll down and we're going to delete this one as well. And then we paste the new one. And for this side, it will be panel 1. So as I've said, for the part where I've put panel 1, if you're not using a subdomain, just put the full domain name there as well. Okay, so that's pretty much it. So I'll do Control X, Y, enter. We need to restart the server. There we go. Now we're logged in. So now, the last time we checked for the hostname, it brought that. Let's see what it brings this time round. And I'm just going to clear the screen. There you go. Your hostname has been changed. So that's how you can change your hostname on Ubuntu, Debian, or any Linux server. But since we are on Contabo, I'm also going to need to change this inside of my Contabo dashboard. So let me come back into, and you can see as soon as we change it, it's changed it here as well. Let's go and change it inside of Contabo as well. So here in Contabo, I will click there to edit, and I will update this one as well. Paste that. Okay, that's not the one. I will paste it in there, and then I will save. This one as well, you can change the second one for the IPv6 if you've enabled IPv6. So your reverse DNS records have been changed on Contabo, and you can just add them as well on Cloudflare. So in this video, you've seen how you can change the host name for your server, and I was using Ubuntu as an example, but you can do this on Debian. You can even try it on other Linux distributions. I'm sure the process should be the same. So change the host name into the domain name or the subdomain name that you're going to use for installing your control panel. Maybe you want to install CyberPanel, HestiaCP, Virtual Min. You need to change the host name to match that, and that's why I was doing this. So in the next video, I'm going to install my control panel. So I will see you in that video. In this video, I want to install HestiaCP. You have watched the previous videos, how I was setting up Ubuntu to run HestiaCP. If you want to use Debian, you can look at the playlist for Debian. I will add the videos for Debian. If you want to use Debian, just watch the previous videos and you're going to see how to set up your server before installing HestiaCP. HestiaCP is a free control panel. So you're wondering why I'm here on Cloudflare. So I'm going to be using Cloudflare for my DNS records. So if you want to use Cloudflare, just log into Cloudflare, add your domain, and then you go into DNS and you can change the DNS records there. So I'm just going to click here because I want to edit this. I will be installing HestiaCP in this subdomain. And in the last video, you saw how to change your server host name. Make sure your server host name is the same as the domain or the subdomain where you want to install HestiaCP. I will have to change these records. First of all, let me add my IP address there, paste and save. And panel 1, of course, this is where I will be installing HestiaCP. So as of now, even if I visit this domain, it's just going to give me a Cloudflare error because there's nothing on my server. But once we install HestiaCP, you're going to see it brings us something there. So let's just do this as an example. Go to JavaScript pair. You'll see it brings this error. But as soon as we have installed HestiaCP, it's going to bring up Nginx as our homepage. All right, so the first part, we have set up our DNS. If you don't have a Cloudflare account, create one, add your website, and then add the A records for that, and then you can add this as the CNAME records. So of course this would be different for you, but the first part we've done, we've added our DNS records. So even if we go to this website, once we install HestiaCP, there will be something there that we can see. So the next step is for us to install HestiaCP. So let me come in here and I will just search for a generation script. I don't want to type everything, so I'm just going to generate the script, and I can search for HestiaCP. So I hope when I search for this, I'm going to get something. So let me try this one from GitHub and see which one this is. Let's go there and see. Okay, so I can install this. So it's important to note that I will not be installing Apache. I will be using PHP FPM and Nginx. However, if you want to install Apache, it's okay. Nothing will change in this tutorial, even if you install Apache. But for me, I usually prefer to use Nginx and PHP FPM. If I want to run any PHP script like WordPress or anything that is PHP related, I just prefer to use Nginx instead of Apache. So PHP FPM, indeed. Install multi-PHP. You probably want to install multiple versions of PHP. So if you want to run all the scripts, you can choose a different version of PHP to run. And then for this, I'll use this. This is just for FTP. Named is used for DNS. So if you want to use DNS on your HestiaCP, maybe you want to use your actual website as your DNS provider, then you need to install named, and I will just install it. And at some point, maybe I may do a tutorial on how you can use your own websites, your own domain as the DNS providers. I may do that or not. MySQL, which database do you want to install? I want to run WordPress, so I'm going to use MySQL. And of course I need Exim for mail, and you can install this. I'll just leave the rest checked. All this, I'll just leave them checked. You can also install that. If you're going to host websites for other people, you should probably install that. I want to force it, because if you don't force it, it's probably going to fail. The installation will fail, and I don't want it to fail. So interactive, yes, I want it to ask me things. And then the hostname, of course, I want to set a hostname. And the hostname, in the last video, I showed you how to change the hostname on your server. So make sure that you change your server hostname to the domain or the subdomain where you want to install your control panel. So I'm going to set my hostname, and I will set my hostname there. And then the email that you want to set as the admin email, add that there. And then a password, you can set a password or you can use the default password. So just write the password that you want there, and I'm just going to use a sample of. And then the default language, of course, you can choose a different language. Just look at the available languages and see which one is in your domain. So I'll just leave that like that, and then I will proceed. Okay, so here's my installation script. Let's go ahead and install. So let's go back to our server, copy it, paste, and then enter. The script has been downloaded. The next step is for us to install everything we need for our HestiaCP. So I'm going to select that and then copy. Then I can find them there. Now, one thing I think I should change here is the port. Now, if you want to use Cloudflare, Cloudflare supports various ports, okay? So those ports, you should probably check on Cloudflare ports. Check on Google to find out the ports that are supported, okay? And you can use one of those ports on your HestiaCP instead of using the default. So, of course, you want to use the HTTP ports. And for this, I can just use 2053. So I'm going to come here, and you can change the port there, or since I already have the script, you know what, let me just change the port here, 2053. So if you want to use Cloudflare to even access your backend, then you can do that here. And then I'm just going to proceed, and I will copy this one more time. Copy, and let's go back to our terminal window. And here now I have to do sudo, and then I will paste in my script in there. and press enter and just wait. Okay, press enter and then enter my user password, my SSH user password, and the next thing you have to do now is just wait. There's nothing you can do but wait. Just wait for the installation to continue. It's going to install everything it needs. HestiaCP is going to install everything it needs, and then once it is done, it's going to give you the access links for HestiaCP admin dashboard. And then after that, we'll see how we can add sites and how to use HestiaCP. You can see the installation of things that are going to happen. So we're going to install Nginx as the web server. And you remember I did not choose Apache, but you can also install Apache. It will also get installed along with Nginx, and you can use that as a reverse proxy. And I chose multi-PHP, bind. This is for DNS, XM is for mail, Dovecot is also for mail, and then MariaDB, of course, you know what that is. And then that is for FTP if you want to access FTP, and then firewall. All these are firewall, and also fail to ban to limit various access options on your server. Would you like to continue with the installation? Absolutely. So just type Y to continue. So it's going to install everything it needs. Okay, everything that HestiaCP needs to run, it's going to install it. And once that is done, we're going to come back and we're going to see how we can access our panel. So I will see you once the installation is complete, or if it asks me to do anything here. There you go. HestiaCP is now successfully installed on your server. If everything went okay, then you will get this message of a successful installation. So these are the access details for your server. That's the link to your server. So since I already added the site on Cloudflare, I can actually access it using my domain, using my control panel domain once I set it up on HestiaCP. But for now, we can just use the IP address. So admin URL, copy that. And by default, the username is admin and the password is what you set. The link, and it will tell you that your connection is not private. And this is because the certificate that is being used is a self-signed certificate, which is not recognized by the browser in the browser database of SSLs. So you can just click here under advanced and then you click to proceed. The username by default is admin. So next, and then enter the password and then log in. There you go. Now you're logged into your HestiaCP control panel, and you can add websites and host as many websites as you want to on your control panel. So in the next video, we're going to do an overview. I'm going to do an overview of Hestia Control Panel, just so you can get an idea of what you can do within your control panel, and you can know what everything is used for within the panel. So I'm going to do that in the next video. But for now, let me just do a recap of what we've done. So in this video, we have installed HestiaCP. So the most important thing is for you to set up your server. All the videos in this HestiaCP control panel tutorial will be in a playlist. So if you're watching this video outside of a playlist, make sure you go to the correct playlist and you watch the videos consecutively in that playlist. And I did install HestiaCP on Ubuntu, but you can install it on Debian as well. So if you want to use Debian, I do have another playlist that I'm going to set up with some of the old server tutorial videos, and you can use that to set up your server and then finally install HestiaCP. And if you want to use Ubuntu, you've seen how you can set up your Ubuntu server step by step, and I'm going to create that playlist as well for Ubuntu. If you want to install HestiaCP on Ubuntu 20.04, which is the latest LTS version of Ubuntu. Step by step, what you need to do, first of all, set up your server, and then after that, install HestiaCP. And you also saw how you can add your DNS records on Cloudflare. So now if we go to Cloudflare and we check this domain, you'll see that now there is something here, and you can see now we have success. This is because HestiaCP has been installed and we can add our site. Right now we don't have any websites on the server except for the main domain, the main panel. Even this, you can even use this to access your control panel. So if you go to that /2053, since I already set up the DNS records in Cloudflare, I should be able to. So this is because we haven't added SSL for it. But once we add SSL, you can just click on it and you can generate a let's encrypt SSL. And once you do that, if you go to if you go to the HTTPS version of this website, you will be redirected to Hestia. That's something you can do here. Once you enable SSL for this domain, it automatically took the SSL from Cloudflare. Let's look at that, and you'll see it's using the SSL from Cloudflare because we set up the DNS on Cloudflare. So that's it for this video. In the next one, let's just do an overview of HestiaCP to see what each of these links, each of these tabs do. I'll see you in the next video. Hi and welcome to this video. In this video, let's do an overview of HestiaCP. So in the last video, you saw how to install HestiaCP. Now let's do an overview. So first of all, to log in, if you want to log in, just go to your IP address and then you add the port that you set up. You did see how I changed my port in the installation process. If you didn't watch the installation process, just go back and watch that video. Here you see we have users. This will list the users in your account. Right now I'm using the admin user, which is the default user in your control panel. And then we have web. This is where you will be adding the different websites that you want to run on your Hestia control panel. And you're going to see how to do that in a moment. DNS. So I will not be working with DNS on HestiaCP, but I installed it nonetheless. I'm just going to use Cloudflare for all my DNS records, but if you want to use HestiaCP, you can also do that as well. There's a video I did about child name servers on cPanel, and if you watch that video, you're going to see exactly how to do it, and it's the same process on HestiaCP. And then for mail, this is where you're going to see everything about mail. You can create mail, you can see the mail, the different accounts that you have, the different mail domains, you can set them up there. And then databases, you can set up databases, you can change passwords for your databases, users, and so on. All that can be created here. And then cron, you can set up cron and you can see any cron jobs that are available currently. And then you can also set up a backup and download the backup. And if you want to look at your server details, just come here and you're going to see all the details for your server, all the processes, the jobs that are running. You can see all these are currently running. I installed multi-PHP, and that's why I have all these PHP versions running here. And you can also see that I have Nginx and I don't have Apache. So if you watch this tutorial from the beginning, I said I didn't want to install Apache. I was going to use Nginx and PHP FPM. So what else is here? If you want to change any settings about your user, just click there. If you want to log out, you can click there to log out. The next thing, let's see how you can add a website. So the first thing before you add a website, make sure that you take your IP address and you create different records. You come here to Cloudflare. If you want to use Cloudflare, that is, add your site here, add your domain to Cloudflare, and then you can add the different records. Just come here under DNS on Cloudflare and add the different records. You can see here I already have one for my control panel, and all the details, the different subdomains, you can set them up here on Cloudflare. Okay, you can see I have an A record. I do have a CNAME for www, and we're going to need that if you want to set up a website on HestiaCP. So let's see that. Let me just give you an overview of how you can set up a new website on HestiaCP. So I'll copy that and let me just come back here and I will go into web. So by the time you're watching this tutorial, I will have deleted this server. So you probably won't get access to any of these IP addresses or any of these links. So if you want to add a website here, maybe you want to host a new website, just click there on add web domain. And actually this is something that I should cover. You can see you're being told create a standard user account before adding web domains. So I'm just doing this as a sample, but what you should do first of all is come here under users and then you set up a new user. Okay, so you need to come here and add a user and use that user to set up all your websites or different websites. You can have different users for different websites. Just try not to use the admin user. I'm using the admin just because I don't want to set up all these accounts, but you can set this up if you want to. Just click there on users and look at the admin user. So it is strongly recommended that you create a standard user. Make sure you do that as I've shown you. And for me, I'm just going to click on continue, which is not advised. This is not secure. What you need to do is create a different account that will have your websites, or you can even have different users for different websites. So there I will add a domain. So make sure once you create that user, you log in as that user, and then you use that specific user to set up your website. That is for security purposes. So for this, I'll just click on create DNS zones, and this is just to give me the different records that I may need to copy from here and then add them to Cloudflare. So I will enable them. If you want to send and receive mail, just click on enable mail for this domain. That's all you need to change. If you have other IP addresses, they can be listed here. Maybe you bought a different IP from Contabo, it will be listed here, and you can set up different sites on different IPs. So I'm just going to click there to save this site. Okay, once the website has been created, you can change different settings. That's just because there's a space before this. So I'll just remove the space. And then once again, I'll click there on create DNS records, and then create, and then enable mail. And then I will save. And now you can see that our domain that has been created successfully. If you look here, you'll see that we have two websites, and we also have one zone. So we have a zone for this domain that we created, and we have 15 records, and you can copy these records into Cloudflare. So I'll just come here under web, and you're going to see how you can install your website on this, or you can just upload one. So for every website that you create, you can see you have this. You can visit the site, you can edit the settings for the site, you can access the logs for the site, and you can suspend it or even delete it if you don't need it anymore. So let's click on it once again, and we're going to enable Let's Encrypt for this website. So I'm just going to click on it, and before you try to enable Let's Encrypt, ensure that you have set up your A records, and you have a www record as well. Okay, so you need the A record and the www record as well. So you can set that as a CNAME. You can also set it up as an A record. If I want to host WordPress on this website, I can change various things here. If I come here, you can enable web statistics. Of course, you want to see the visits for the site, and you can enable statistics authorizations, and you can enable domain redirection if you want to redirect this domain somehow. Maybe you want to redirect redirect visitors to www, redirect all visitors to that. You can do that as well. And then you can enable SSL. So use Let's Encrypt to enable SSL. And then enable automatic HTTPS redirection. That's going to redirect all traffic to your HTTPS domain. You can enable strict, and most of the times you definitely want to do that. Just enable HTTP strict, because most browsers nowadays support that. And then here under advanced, you can change various settings. Just click on advanced, and you can choose a template for Nginx. So if you want to run WordPress, you'll need to choose the WordPress template down there. And definitely, most definitely, you want to enable fast CGI. And with fast CGI, your website is going to load much faster. The cache is going to get stored on your server, and it's going to reduce the server load generally. So what you can do is you can increase this time. Once you know how often you usually update your website, you can even make this 1 day. You can make it 1 day if you want to, because 2 minutes, that's too short. And then backend template PHP FPM. Which version of PHP do you want to run? If you want to run a specific version, you can run that. WordPress, you can try PHP 8 for WordPress. WordPress already supports PHP 8. And then you can create a custom document root. So you can change the document root where this will be. And if you go to the file manager, we're going to go there in a moment. If you go to the file manager, then you'll see it wherever you decide to put it. So if you want to change the directory, you can just change the directory there, but I don't want to change that. I'll just use the default as it is. And then you can create FTP accounts for this. Maybe you want to give access to different people, then you can create users and then send these details to those users so that they can log into the website and set it up. So once you've changed and added all the settings that you want to add, the next thing that you want to do is you want to come up here and you want to click on save. We just need to give it some time for Let's Encrypt to give us a new certificate. This is not secure, but if I try to reload it, it should redirect us to HTTPS. Okay, so the website is there. Now you can add whatever you want in your site. So if you come here under web, You can change the different settings again if you want to. Let's go into files. Maybe you want to update, maybe you want to install WordPress here. You can install WordPress manually. Okay, so if you do want to install WordPress and you know how to install WordPress manually, back in the day when we used to install it manually, right, without the fast installation, without the automatic installation that we have on most web hosts nowadays, we just used to bring the files into the public HTML here, and then you extract the WordPress files inside there, and then once you extract the files inside here, so remember you go into web, into the domain you want to go to, and then into public HTML, and then you can bring in the files, the WordPress files, just extract all of them inside here. If you want to exit to control panel, you can exit back to the control panel. And once you're here, so for you to install WordPress, let's assume that you've gone under files and you've extracted the WordPress files. The next step is for you to create a database, or you can do this before you even upload the files. So if you go into your DB, you can create a new database. You can add a database. Make sure that you're using this with a new user that is not the admin user. The admin user is default on every Hestia Control Panel. So make sure that you don't use it for setting up your sites and anything else that you need for your site. So we'll just continue. So what you're going to do is you're going to give the database a name. Let's just call it DB2. And remember that this usually takes the username first as a prefix. Okay, so the name for your database will be that depending on the user that you're using. So copy the name from there, and then of course you want MySQL, that's the one we installed, and then the username for the user, the username for the database, you can set up a new one. And just remember that this is the user now, this entire thing. The prefix will be the username that you set up. So make sure it's something that's unique. The username that you set up, make it unique. Right now we're using the admin user, which is not advised. And then for the password, it will just be the password that you set here. So your password must have strong characters. Okay, once you do that, you can change all these other details if you want to change these details about your database. And once you set up your database with all the settings, just click there to save, and you can connect your database successfully when installing WordPress. And if you want to visit your database and maybe import a database, you can go to phpMyAdmin, which is installed by default. So if you want to visit phpMyAdmin, you just visit it through the domain that you set up. Okay, so visit it through that domain. If it doesn't work, you can try to figure out what the issue is. Before I end the video, I'm trying to figure out what else will be important for you here. Okay, let's go into DNS. Now here under DNS, you can see we do have one DNS zone for that. So you can look at the records for this, and then you can add those records on Cloudflare. You can just copy them one at a time and add them on Cloudflare if you're using Cloudflare. This is a text record, so you can copy it and add it to Cloudflare. Okay, just copy them as they are and then add them to Cloudflare. Let's see what else is important here before I end the video. Let's go into backups. It's important to have backups. So in this HestiaCP overview, let's look at backups. You can see we've already set up a new backup here, and you can even set up a new backup. Just create a backup. It's going to take a little bit, but my server is currently very small, so this is not really going to take long. So if this was my backup, I can download it. You can download it and keep it on your computer, or you can download it and move it to a different server. If maybe you're moving from one VPS to another, you can just download this, and then once you've set up a new server, then you can just import it. So to import, just Google how to import a database. You can do it very easily. Just upload it. Once you've set up your server like this, you can just upload it even via FTP, and then move it appropriately via SSH, and then you'll just run the backup. And you can Google how to do that. There is a very simple one line for how to do it on HestiaCP documentation. So just Google how to do that if you're moving from one server to another. So we've looked at DB. Let's look at mail. after we look at mail, we're going to see how we can maybe change various settings. Maybe you want to change something in PHP config file, or you want to change something in Nginx. We're going to see how you can do that. So here, the next step is domain. Maybe you want to add mails for this. You can add a mail domain here. So let's click there, add a mail domain. And of course, it is strongly recommended that you use a different user. So you can add a mail domain. Let's go back. For that, let's click on this. If you want to add an account, just click on the domain and then you can add an account, and you can even edit the mail domain. Mail domain is the domain, like in this case, example.com. Once you add the mail domain, you can add the different mail accounts just like that. So the next step, let's look at how you can change different settings here. So let's go into our server. So most of this you'll need to do using the admin account. So if you want to restart the server, you can do that. You can look at your server logs. You can see if there are any updates, and you can also monitor the task to see how your resources are being used. You can also configure different things here. Maybe you want to configure all these different items on your server. Just click on whichever, all these items, anything that you want to change here. You can just click maybe web server. You want to edit Nginx. Click there and you can configure Nginx, backend server, PHP. You can configure that to change all these settings, but some of this you can just change them through here. So maybe you want to change something in Nginx. You can just come here and you click on edit, and that's going to bring you here, and you can change the different settings. Maybe you want to change the max body size. Maybe your server is crashing or timing out due to these times. You can increase the different times for this. You may want to increase this maybe to 90 seconds if you are experiencing problems whereby certain scripts are running out of time. So you can change that here. Then gzip, of course, you want to enable that. And then if you want to change the actual settings here, you can just click on advanced down here, and you'll be able to click on that. You'll be able to change the settings here. And then once you do that, you can just click on save, and it's going to restart Nginx. So let's go back, and if you want to configure, so depending on the PHP version that you're using, maybe you're using PHP 8, you can also configure the settings for that. And it's just the same thing here. You may need to change max execution time for various scripts. You may need to increase memory. Anything that you need to do here, you can just come in here and change them. And if you want to do them on the actual PHP INI file, you can also do that here. So that's just an overview of HestiaCP, and that's pretty much it for this video. So just remember, if you do want to add another website, you can just come in here, click on web, add another website, add the DNS records on Cloudflare, and that's going to work for you. So if you're using a subdomain and you want to add SSL, you can see mine doesn't have SSL yet. Make sure that on Cloudflare you add another one like that, okay? www.panel1. So that's required for SSL. You need the www version and the actual A record for that. I hope you understand what I mean, okay? A record for the main domain is that, and then I also have a www record for it, and then for this subdomain I also need a www version for it, and you just add it like that, www.panel1. and then you add it as a CNAME record for that. So I hope you understand this, okay? I've done videos about this in the past many times. That's why I'm going fast over this. You can find those videos especially in the CyberPanel tutorial. Just look at the DNS videos. You'll learn a lot there. So if you want to add another website, make sure you add the records there. If you want to reduce the server load on your server, just use Cloudflare instead of using your server for DNS. So for this, let's enable SSL, and we want to redirect people to the non-www record. And of course, I'm going to use Let's Encrypt. So as soon as I do that, I can just click on save. The certificate will be generated for me, and it will be visible on my front end. And if visitors visit my site, they will be redirected to the HTTPS version of my site. So this has been a slightly long video, but I wanted to do an overview of HestiaCP so that in case I take some time to create other videos, you will still find your way around and you will not be lost in using HestiaCP, regardless of how long it takes me to push out the next video. So I hope this video has been tremendously helpful to you. If you're lost, just go to Google and search for the problem that you're having. The HestiaCP forum is very helpful, and you can also find a lot of help on GitHub. Okay, so I hope this video will help you to find your way around HestiaCP, especially after following along with all the videos that we've done so far. Okay, I will do a file manager overview. Unfortunately, I don't have any websites here, so let me see if I can create a sample first. But just as a note, the file manager is there. If you open that, you'll see your files, and you can manage your files here. So your web files will be inside there. Right now you can say I don't have any website. Let me see if I can create a sample. I don't have any domains I can use. Let's just see if I can work with a sample. So this is just a sample panel. I'm not using it for anything. So as soon as I'm done with this, I'm just going to delete it. So I'll just continue. And I can add a sample domain. And I will just save. So the domain has been created. And now if I come here and let me try to refresh, and we see if the folder will be inside of the web directory. Okay, you can see now inside of the web directory there, we have this directory for your website. So this is where you can add your website files. Your website files will be inside of the public HTML. You can see we have HTML. If you just click on it, you can edit it. Just by clicking on it, you can edit it. And once you're done editing it, you can save or close. If you want to create another file, you can just create there a new folder, a new file, whatever you want. Let's create something like PHP. You can click on it if you want to edit and add things inside there and save. And if you want to zip up, if you want to select a few things and maybe zip them up, you can zip them. If you want to delete, you can delete, copy, download. All this is there. You can select everything and zip them up. Always zip and zip them. Create the zip, and you can download your zip file. So you can see this is a very simple file manager that you can use in HestiaCP. And once you're done with anything, you can just click exit to go back to the control panel. Select on the element and more features will be shown for you. You can download, copy, move, all that is there. If you want to go back to a different website, just click on web and you can go to whichever website you want to go to. So if you just click on this side for any file, you can do all these other things. You can unzip. Just because it's an archive, let's select a different file. And if I select a different file, I can download, view, copy, move, rename, and so on. You can copy the link and share the link if you want to do that. You can see it's a very simple file manager to use, and that's how to use the file manager for HestiaCP. If you compare this with Vesta, then you'll see that this is a great improvement from what we had. That's pretty much it for this tutorial. You've seen how you can work with Hestia Control Panel File Manager. If you want to go back to the control panel, just click there, exit. I will delete this domain. Select there to delete it. And there we go. So that's how to use the HestiaCP File Manager. How to delete, create, and download your HestiaCP server backup. So first of all, I will delete this backup. On the backup, you can just come there and you can click on delete, and that will delete it. You can also select it, and right there, you can select, delete, and then delete. When you do that, it's going to delete this backup. Let's see how we can create a backup. Creating a HestiaCP server backup is very easy. Just click there on create backup. I will click OK and give it some time to create it. Depending on the size of your server and the speed of your server, it's going to take some time, but it usually takes less than 5 minutes. So just give it some time and then come back and refresh. And once it is created, the backup will be shown there. I will refresh again after waiting, and this time around the backup is complete. So there's your backup. If you want to download the backup, all you have to do is come here and click on download. The first icon will download your backup, and you can import it in another HestiaCP server if you need to. So that's pretty much it for this video. In another video, if I set up HestiaCP, I will show you how to import the backup into the new server. So that's it for this video. How to delete, create and download HestiaCP backup.